Hello guys, we're back again. This is our third podcast. Delighted to be here,
Absolutely.
myself and Laura.
Yes.
So last week we talked a little bit about limiting self-beliefs, and we had suggested that you maybe do a little activity or a little exercise to see what they look like in your own life. And then today we wanted to talk about boundaries.
Yes.
Because that's a big, we could spend hours
Yeah.
here. Don't worry, we're not. We're only spend 15 minutes, but you could spend hours around boundaries because it's such a huge part of everybody's life.
Yeah.
Whether they realise it or not, and hopefully you will definitely know about it after today.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the piece we wanted to say first was, with the limiting self-beliefs, if you struggle with those, it is going to be very difficult to put in appropriate boundaries for yourself, because your sense of who you are and the sense, your value of yourself will make it very difficult if you don't believe in yourself, if you don't have that sense of identity and that sense of like, I am important and I am needing to be prioritised, and that's okay.
Yes.
So like for me, growing up, we would have been raised, if you prioritise yourself or you do something really good for yourself, what are you? Selfish. Selfish. And now I say I can be selfish. All I like, I don't mind. I am putting in boundaries that really help balance my life. So people can say you're selfish or you're not. It's really about you owning your own boundary and what works for you. So what do you think, Laura?
Agreed. I would call it giving your power away.
Absolutely.
Because for me, like, your boundary is more energetic, and if you don't have that sense of yourself, you're going to give yourself away. Okay.
Completely.
And what you just said there, it's like, when we were kids, like, it was so selfish to be actually to serve yourself first instead of other people. And that almost comes like from like that whole childhood trauma, like you want to be the pleaser, you want to be loved, you want to do what's best for other people, and almost like we took on responsibility for making other people happy, and then we thought that was going to fulfill us if the other person was happy, but we're just kind of going along with it.
Do you know what reminds me of, actually, as we're talking about it, is the roles we play in life. So the roles within a family, the roles within a friendship, in a relationship, in a workplace. So that really does play
and
hugely into that.
A placator, like, a pleaser, and most of us, are innate pleasers. We want to make other people feel good, as I said, but then you're giving your power, like for me, that's called giving your power away. So, and the more when people, and people will sense that from you, they will sense it from you, and that there's where the boundary comes in, where, I'll ask Laura, she'll say yes.
Sure, completely. Yeah, definitely.
Or even if you're in work and, your boss will go, somebody will, who will stay late? Laura will. And it's
totally.
not, and it's not their fault. So there's where we become the blamer. My boss is always asking me. Well, actually, it's the opposite way around. The more you're secure in yourself and the I am enough. When we feel that, and when we fulfill our own, as I said, or even fulfill our own being, people won't ask us because the energy won't be there to meet it, to say yes and please, so they'll ask somebody else.
That's so true, though. And especially, like, I suppose one of the things to think about for you guys is, what is a boundary and what are the boundaries you have in your life right now? Are there non-negotiable boundaries in your life? Because I definitely would have them without question. And boundaries, the thing about boundaries is it's like a guide or it's something to show somebody else how to treat you, because the old saying we have is that you teach people how to treat you. So if you don't have a boundary up there, and boundary is really just a space where it allows you to have control over what you bring in and out of your life, particularly on an energetic level, but just in general how people treat us. So it's very important for us to understand, to examine, first of all, do you have those in your life, what they look like, are they strong, do they need to be readjusted maybe, and see where they fit. I think that's really important.
100%. And it's also around choice.
Yes, definitely.
Choice. You choose to allow this or you choose not to. And that's, and in every aspect of it. And we were only chatting today, like we were even talking about, like, right down to our identities, and we were like talking about our roles, and I was like, my gosh, I feel like I'm an umbrella of well-being, like I have this and I have yoga and I have massage and I have this and this, and then we were like, okay, so we need to create a boundary even in who we are and how people actually see us.
So how would you describe now? If somebody said to you, what do you do?
Okay, for me, I'm an energy resilience practitioner. And that's because I understand where energy goes and energy flows, and then I understand that people need to build up their and tap into their own energy, whether it's through massage or yoga or movement, to actually deal with experiences outside themselves. So that's how I would describe myself. And what about you?
So for me, I would say that I am a relationship coach. So anywhere there's any type of relationship, and a system, there's always connectedness in all of that. And so I would be involved in that, in kind of helping people support that, work their way through that, looking at the different components to relationships, whether it's on a personal level, professional level, company level, whatever that is. It's in relation to that then.
But again, that took us a while to create our boundary, to understand even that. So once I suppose you know who you are, then you can actually build your inner strength much, much quicker, so completely. That's a huge one for me.
The other part I think too is that the understanding that when you do have boundaries in place, that boundaries can be flexible. So you might have a boundary that says every week I'm going to go for a walk at 10 o'clock on a Sunday, no matter what. And that's a really good boundary to have, because that's your space and you're owning that. But that doesn't say that if someone rings you with an emergency and goes, I'm at the hospital or I need something really badly, that you don't have the flexibility to do that. Because again, it's about what Laura says, it's about choice. You choose what you engage in and what you don't engage in. The difference if you don't have a boundary is really that you be getting those phone calls all of the time. And then you will never get those walks in. You won't even have had time to think that you deserve to have a walk or that you want to have a walk. You don't actually get to that stage of it, creating that boundary.
It's amazing. I actually heard the word frame, that you are framing somebody else's life. So that just means that imagine you had a vision board, and by you actually saying yes to everyone else, you're creating their vision board and you're forgetting about your own. And even I've done this, so I can speak from authority on this, where I'm people are going, oh, I need something, and I'm grand, count me in, and then actually forgetting how to come back to myself and actually create myself. So this week I'm no, people, so don't call me on Thursday. Just let you know. But that's a huge thing. It's actually knowing what you want to create yourself and giving yourself the time for it. And that's been my biggest lesson over the last weeks.
Totally. And I think the other thing too is that we're very big into wellness anyway, but that piece around this is another part of wellness and minding yourself and giving yourself permission to take care of yourself. Because if you don't prioritize yourself and give your body and your mind everything that you need to function at the highest level that it can, it's very hard for you then to give to everybody else the way you want to give to everybody else. Yeah,
but not only that, what'll happen is then you'll start kind of resenting other people for asking you.
Absolutely.
And then you become the blamer, going, oh, I wish they wouldn't ask. But actually, as you just said, you have trained them to ask because you've been the yes person.
All of the time.
Yes. So here's me going, yes. But even just to be aware of that, and even if that's one thing that you kind of catch yourself this week, is kind of going, do I really want to do that? Again, it's constantly being conscious. So it's that intention to pay attention to your answers or to your responses and actions. And that's where mindfulness and connecting back in the whole time is.
Completely. It's you become the driver in your own system. We talked a little bit about that a couple of podcasts ago, but you become the driver of your own system, of what you do in your life, how your body reacts to things, how your energy does. Now, I know for me, I would and it's taken years to get to that place, but I would have very good boundaries for the most part. And I'm very strong on that. Because I'm very clear about what I want in my life and who's in my life. And so there's times when you have to make decisions that you go, oh God, you feel a little bit guilty going, I would really like to see that person. But then you have to weigh that up and go, is this going to benefit me to where I'm going? Is it going to take up the time? Do I have that time to give to someone? If I do, no problem. But if I need some extra time, I'm choosing me to have that extra time. And I can rearrange that time with the other person for a different date.
100%.
But making sure that I actually am making sure that I'm okay.
Yes. And again, we're talking about boundaries, and people are saying, oh, is there ever such a thing as boundaries? There are, but we will always trigger each other. We will always treat, because we're reciprocal beings and energetic beings, so, but it's known that if somebody kind of comes along and say, oh, will you work 9 to 5 or will you do the extra hour? And that starts triggering you. That's where you kind of need to know, okay, I need to create a boundary. So what you do is you kind of step away, or you take a breath, or you come back to yourself, create a boundary, make a choice, and then come back. And then when you've kind of healed that side of you, that pleaser side of you, or you acknowledge it. You actually acknowledge, go, God, like I'm always being the one asked, why? Question why you're the one that's always been asked. And when you do, and when you do that, you can kind of heal that side of you, and then you can let your boundaries down to actually be that reciprocal person in the world. Yeah.
And there's lots of different types of, there's 4 that I know for sure that, there's the physical boundary. So I would be a real huggy person. So like, but I can tell now that if I go to somebody and I think about hugging, you can read somebody's body language, whether that's okay with them or not. So you have to be very mindful of that.
Yeah.
So you take a step back and go, okay, this is not the right time to do this, or this is not, I'm crossing a boundary and I don't want to do that to that person, and I'm not going to do it.
Excellent.
Because if I continue to do it, that means it's all about me then. It isn't about what that other person is feeling.
Love it.
Yeah, and you have to be really mindful of that. Now, it takes time to get used to that, because, it's sometimes, maybe for some people, the hug, it doesn't matter, that distracts them from other things, and they just want to do that because it makes them comfortable. So we need to be thinking about those.
Yeah.
And then there's the other, there's spiritual boundaries, there's sexual boundaries, and that particularly is important as well, that you're really clear about in anything you do in life, but even in a relationship, like making sure that you're very clear about what's okay with you and what isn't. And then the relationship boundaries then, and work boundaries. They're all different, but at the end of the day, it's about you driving those decisions and those choices for yourself, and being okay with it.
100%, and feeling it. And as I said, if you do get triggered, looking and acknowledging it and go, oh gosh, like, yes, I have been the pleaser, so how can I heal this? And it's just being able to say no. Yeah.
It's that simple. Yeah. Sometimes, though, we know saying no can be really difficult.
Yeah.
Because we're just like, I want to say no, but oh God, I feel really bad. And then people will think I'm really mean if I say no, or I'm selfish, or I'm this and that.
So those 80,000 thoughts are coming in.
Completely. Yes. And that's all coming from that subconscious that we talked about. It is okay to put boundaries in place. It's okay to say no. And you need to measure that. And when people realise that, they actually have a bit more respect for you.
I was going to say this exact same thing. People will go, okay, and they actually feel it from you, and they have more respect, and they go, no, I won't actually go near Laura on a Wednesday because that's when she's doing her studying, or, so, huge percent. I so agree with that one.
Yeah, and it can be very difficult, that there's no question.
Well, again, it's that guilt, as you say, guilt, but guilt is a man-made emotion. It's a man-made emotion because it's only coming from, how we were programmed, as I said, from that 0 to 7. And, if you make somebody smile and it makes them feel good, you think that's who you are meant to be, that person, but we're not. And the more we can fill our own cup, then we can serve in a much better way.
I love that.
So...
And I think the one thing about boundaries too, it can really help avoid conflict. Initially, it will be uncomfortable because you're not used to that space of saying no. Someone else might be a little uncomfortable with the answer, but we'll work through that. But if it would allow to reduce conflict in that, people then know that they're not going to go to you and say, can you come on a certain day, because you're doing, like Laura said, you're doing something else. Whereas if you continue to do that for somebody without putting a boundary in place, you are going to get angry, you're going to get fed up, you're going to go, I'm sick and tired of this. Your energy is drained. So not only are you not having a clear boundary, you are openly just giving away all of that energy that you have within your body and within your, within your life.
Yes, so I so agree. And even like you just said about giving your power away, totally. And to work through it. The key is not to work through it with the other person. It's actually to work through it with yourself, and then go back, and it won't affect you as much.
And be okay with it.
Yes. Yeah. So homework.
I know. So what we said every week we try to give you something to take home with. So what we want you to look at today is, first of all, what are the boundaries that you have in your life? Do you have boundaries? Are they strong? Do you need to readjust some of those? Are you happy with the way they are right now? The thing we need to look at, create one new boundary. What is a non-negotiable boundary in your life? Okay. So when you're going to do this, you need to define what that boundary is, what it looks like for you. This is not for anybody. This is really for you to be very clear about what it is that you want to put a boundary around. And then once you do that, you need to communicate that to other people in your life, whether it's work, whether it's home, whether it's relationship, friends, whatever arena it belongs to. Keep it simple. That's the third thing. Is just keep it simple. There doesn't have to be an elaborate explanation as to why you're doing this in your head or why. It's just that you want this for yourself and that you want to own that space back. and then expect that there's set consequences. And what I mean by that is that be very clear with yourself that when you set this boundary up, that you're able to turn around if someone says, well, why can't you go? That you go, actually, it's the language we use, right? So instead of saying, I am not going to, someone else is going to ask me to do this, I'm not doing it for them anymore. You take that back, own that language yourself and go, I'm actually doing this because I need an hour break between the time I get home and the time that I go and do something else later in the evening. So this is what I need to do for me. So you're very clear. There's no question around that. And there's no blaming of anybody else. There's ownership for you, and about what you want. And it's perfectly okay to do that. I mean, that's the other thing. We need to be empowering ourselves. Exactly. And it's permission to yourself that, it is okay for me to do this. I need to prioritise that hour for myself. Yes. And I'd be so much better when I do that.
I was going to say, you can actually feel it as you're saying it. It totally empowers you. And it's like, oh my gosh, thank you. I've done something for myself. And your inner being's like, yes, I love you. Thank you.
And what happens with your energy?
Yes.
Through the roof. That's how we keep our energies up, I have to say. I think I was thinking about that, and I think everybody would say we would have really high energy, and I think most of that is because we are both very clear in our boundaries and our directions, and that's not to say that a few days we don't have a like wobbler kind of go, a different type of a day, but that's okay because we 100%. Recognize it and shift. But it is around, we own a lot of our own, we own our power and we own our energy because we have very clear boundaries in place. Yeah. And they really work. Yeah. So good luck with that this week, guys. Enjoy it. Yeah. And hopefully you'll have fun with that.
Yes.
So thanks a million for taking the time with us. We tried to cut it a bit shorter this time because we know it's gone a bit long the last few times. So anyway, hopefully you can work and at least be thinking of boundaries this week. Whether you do anything with them or not, at least it's in your head.
Exactly. Now you'll be thinking planting the seeds.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Have a great week, guys.
See
you
care.
Later.
Bye.